Welcome everybody to our emotional intelligence presentation. This presentation should give you some practical skills to implement. First, understand what emotional intelligence is, then implement some strategies and go beyond that to use those strategies to be able to help you leverage yourself in the corporate world and get a seat at the table. So let's go ahead and jump in. So today we're diving into emotional intelligence. As I said, it's a vital skill that can help transform you and help you connect with others. It can help you make decisions and inspire your teams. So again, we're going to explore these core components of emotional intelligence, why it matters in leadership, and how it can help you navigate both team dynamics and corporate culture. By the end of this presentation, you'll have some actionable steps that you can take with you to help you strengthen your leadership approach and create a more engaged and collaborative team environment. So let's go ahead and get started on the journey towards becoming a more emotional, intelligent person, and if you are, a leader. A little bit about our company. So first I wanted to stop and tell you guys a little bit about us before we jump right in. We're a young leadership development coaching company built from, for me, 15 plus years of experience in leadership. And our main goal is just to empower leaders to become the leader that they were always meant to be. Quick and short. A little bit about our team, starting with me, is I've been in operations for about 20 years and the last 15 as an operation leader. I saw a gap in corporate America and decided to expand myself and create a business where leaders have a community to grow and learn with. I saw that a lot of leadership get left behind, or maybe not left behind, but untouched, unfocused on, because we're always so focused on frontline employees, being that they usually drive performance. Melissa, on your left, is a professional coach with over a decade of experience in education and training. As an instructional coach and staff developer, she has consistently led teams with empathy and advocated for marginalized groups, creating safe spaces for professionals to thrive. And then you have Cindy, who serves as our Director of Admin and Staffing here at Leadership from the Heart. She expertly leverages her extensive background in customer service, event planning, and education, and she drives our organizational excellence and helps us to remain organized. Jumping into the agenda here, we start with what is emotional intelligence, and I think it's always important to start with the definition of it so that you know kind of the direction that we're going in. Then we talk about how you can enhance your self-awareness and tackle some simple strategies for self-regulations after that. Then we talk about empathy, because you can't talk about emotional intelligence without touching empathy and how it contributes to emotional intelligence and leadership. And then finally, we discover how to gain your seat at the table and make yourself stand out and become a valuable participant within your organization. So what is emotional intelligence, right? Or EI, as you may hear me say throughout the rest of this presentation. It's a foundational skill for effective leadership. It's beyond the technical and the intelligence that we usually measure. It's about deeply understanding both yourself, your own emotions, and the emotions of those around you. Leaders with high IQ, or high EQ, can navigate complex interpersonal dynamics, create a sense of belonging, and an environment where people feel seen, valued, and understood. And you're going to hear this feel seen, valued, and understood a lot in this presentation, because this is what EI is all about. Everybody, including yourself, always wants to be seen, valued, and understood. Now, how that recognition is given could be different for everybody, right? I'm a person that you can show me your appreciation and how you value me and how you see me by paying me, right? I don't necessarily need accolades. I don't need a lot of recognition. You can show me that through compensation and, of course, the occasional, thank you, you're doing a great job. That goes a long way. So there are 5 components to emotional intelligence. So there are 5 components to emotional intelligence, and it starts with self-awareness. Self-awareness is the ability to recognize and understand your own emotions. It is the first step in emotional intelligence. It's understanding your own emotions as well as your strengths and the areas that you have for improvement. Self-aware leaders are conscious of their emotional responses and how this will affect their behavior and their interactions with others. And so by being aware of those, then you can go into the next step, which is self-regulation. But want to start by giving you an example of what self-awareness looks like. So imagine that you come in and you have a team meeting, but you're already frustrated with how your morning has gone. It could be work related or not work related. A self-aware leader would then recognize the feeling, understand where it's coming from, and consciously choose how to address the team rather than letting the frustration shape their communication during the meeting. And you could do this by saying, hey guys, I'm a little frustrated. So if anything comes out that is not normal, that's just coming from my frustration. Or, right, allowing yourself to self-regulate before you have the meeting so that it doesn't impact how you communicate further, because everything has a ripple effect. And so we'll get into a lot more self-regulation here shortly, but that's an example of what self-awareness looks like. Next is self-regulation. Self-regulation is about managing your emotions. So self-awareness is about being aware of it, and then regulation is about managing it. So managing your emotions in a productive and positive way, even when you're under stress. It allows you to stay calm and composed rather than reacting impulsively to challenges and conflicts. Next, you have motivation. And the motivation block that we have here in the context of emotional intelligence is that motivation is not driven by rewards or recognition. It's not external, is what we're trying to say. It's an inner drive to achieve goals and take pride in your accomplishments. Emotional intelligence gives you the ability to be motivated by a sense of purpose and desire that make a meaningful impact rather than it being from external sources, which is why I think for me personally, I don't necessarily need the accolades. I feel that I am driven by my own compass of values and skill sets and what I know I could do and what I know my team is capable of doing. And so that really does drive me forward. Next, we have empathy, because we can't have EI without having empathy. And empathy is the ability to recognize and consider other people's emotions, allowing you to connect on a deeper level with them. Empathic leaders make conscious efforts to understand team members' experiences, needs, and feelings. So an example of this is, whenever you start to see or hear, it's being, first, let me take a step back. It's being aware that somebody is being distant, and it's being conscious of them and their distance. Don't know what's happening with my camera, but we'll try to get it to make good on this one. So again, empathic leaders make a conscious effort. So when you see a team member who is a little bit distant, you may approach them privately and offer some support and see how you can help them, even if it's just listening, because you may not be the therapist that they need. You don't know what's going on. It could be external, meaning it could be from home, yet being aware, keenly aware that something is off and not avoiding it, but approaching it is really what empathy looks like. It's really trying to understand what is driving your employees' behavior and being aware when they're feeling a little off. And finally, we have social skills. Social skills involves building and maintaining relationships effectively. Individuals with strong social skills can communicate clearly, resolve conflicts, and create a positive interaction that strengthens the team bond. An example of somebody with strong social skills would look like using humor to lighten a tense situation, maybe during a meeting or a conversation, or finding ways to bring out the quieter folks, the quieter team members that you have, bringing out their ideas, and of course addressing conflict very diplomatically to maintain a respectful and productive team atmosphere. Social skills is the fifth pillar, but it is absolutely a beautiful component when mirrored and joined with all the other four components. And I would say if in your social skills, allow empathy to drive you. Because if empathy drives you, then you have a genuine care for everything that you're saying and why you're doing it. And you're speaking and carrying yourself in a very intentional way. But why does EI matter? And what does emotional intelligence and leadership look like? So here you have your blocks of, better decision making, team management, building trust, which all comes down to making an impact, right? It's emotional intelligence, and you'll hear me say this later on again, it's more than just a nice to have or a benefit, right? And it's important for leaders because building trust is the foundation. And you'll hear this in every leadership book and every, leadership seminar, that building trust is key. So leaders with high emotional intelligence naturally build trust because the approach that they have with their teams is with empathy and trying to understand, being curious enough. So when team members see that their leader genuinely cares about them and their well-being and respects their viewpoints, it creates this other layer of foundation of trust and openness. And the trust leads to stronger working relationships, which are essential for having a cohesive team. EI also matters in leadership because it does help you make better decisions. When you respect other people's viewpoints and you create this diverse workplace, you can make better decisions because you'll have better inputs. So leaders with high or moderate or who are working on their EI understand the emotional aspects that may be influencing their team's behaviors and, most importantly, influencing their own reactions. So by factoring in these emotions, leaders can make better, balanced, and thoughtful decisions that consider not only the business but the well-being of their team as well. So leaders with EI are better at remaining objective and avoiding impulsive choices and considering the long-term effect of their decisions with their team. And then finally, we have team engagement. It's important to have team engagement. It's important to have your team want to be involved with things that are going on around the business. It's important for people to have what they would consider a supportive environment. It reduces burnout and it increases motivation. A leader who practices this can pick up on early signs of stress and disengagement. They can pick up on frustrations and address those issues before they escalate. Because there are small, subtle signs, Again, we'll get into this a lot more later on, but the body language has a lot to do with it. So this proactive approach in team engagement keeps your team engaged and energized, more importantly, creative at problem solving. When team members feel psychologically safe, they share new ideas and they take more calculated risk. It's not the inertia of every day we just do this and we're just doing the same thing every day and we're not trying to get that 1% better. Teams led by such types of leaders tend to have higher morale and better resilience. The adaptability that they tend to cultivate as their leader is supporting them because they have the emotional intelligence that they need as a leader is unmatched. EI is not just a benefit. It's absolutely necessary for you to have all the other beautiful things that come with leadership. And so it cultivates and drives thriving, engaged, and high-performing teams. And so, of course, I encourage you to either take the assessment that you'll see in the show notes or find your own and work on your emotional intelligence. The first key, though, is self-awareness, and we'll get into that in our next slide. And so you'll have to know where you are to know where you want to go. So find a assessment, or you can take the one that you'll see in our show notes below. So self-awareness is the first step in emotional intelligence and effective leadership. Understanding your own emotional triggers, the tendencies that you have, and the way they impact you, your team, and your decision making is what's first and foremost, right? If you know you fly off the handle when somebody does X, you need to be able to manage that. So leaders who are self-aware can better manage their emotional responses, align their actions with their values, and maintain authenticity in their leadership style. I think something that I learned a few years ago was a facilitator was walking us through an exercise, and she, wanted us to remember what it felt like when you were about to do something scary. And she had us articulate what our body actually physically was going through. And so you had, the voice shaking, the getting warm in your chest area, your hands are getting clammy, your knees are shaking. All of those physical responses that happen when you think that you're in danger or when you're about to do something scary, she had us articulate. And it was beautiful because what I didn't know she was going to do was help us understand that now that we're aware, again, first step, now that you're aware of that, now you can move forward and still walk into the thing that you're scared of, or still walk into the thing that you have fear of. Because she was just trying to get us to first understand that that's a natural tendency for your body to have, and that you don't need to consistently run away just because you have those physiological things happening within your body, that now that you know them, you can move forward. And I thought that was such a paradigm shift for me, because since then I have completely been aware of when it's happening, and I know move forward anyway. Obviously, we're not talking about a tiger attack or jumping off a bridge without a parachute. We're talking about normal fight or flight things, speaking in front of a group or being in a room where you don't feel like you should be, or you're undervalued. All of those things where you still get the same emotional response as if you were going to jump off a building or skydive or whatever, where your life could actually be in danger. We have a lot of those emotional responses even when our life is not in danger. And so understanding that for yourself is also one of the keys. So here are 3 techniques to enhance your self-awareness. The first is mindfulness. Mindfulness involves you observing your emotions in real time without judgment. And by practicing mindfulness regularly, you can become very attuned to your emotional state, and you can pause before reacting. And so what mindfulness looks like is take a few minutes of deep breathing or guided meditation each morning, which can help you clear your mind and prepare you to approach the day ahead with a more centered mindset. I've been meditating myself since about 2016, and prior to meditation and even early on in meditation, I would go into my meditation with, my 20 things to do, my to-do list, and I would walk away from my meditation with maybe 1 or 2. And so it really does help you clear your mind and center yourself and not try to grasp at everything around you, but to stay focused on what actually matters. Meditation doesn't have to be clearing your mind like everything else says. I would say that you could start meditation with just 5 minutes. Start with 1 minute if you need to, but 5 minutes of just quietness and just watching how many thoughts come into your sphere, and appreciate those thoughts. Say thank you for that thought and let it come in and go out, or let it simmer, or let it stay, whatever it does. Just watch it, and don't, again, like it says, don't be judgmental about it. Another approach that I need to do more of, I do journal, but I need to journal more, is journaling, writing down your thoughts, your feelings, and how your reactions are, so that you could see the patterns in your responses and the different situations that you encounter. Over time, journaling helps you recognize your triggers and understand why certain situations invoke a specific emotion. So when you're journaling, one of the prompts you could use is to reflect on the situations that went well throughout your day and where you felt challenged. Look at how you felt when you felt good and how you felt when you felt challenged. Look for patterns in your emotional responses and identify any reoccurring triggers or any reoccurring themes, people, words, feelings, and then you can go from there. And then the final one is seeking feedback. Feedback is a gift. Constructive feedback from trusted colleagues or mentors provides new perspectives on your behalf. Others often see things differently than the way we do, and so we can easily overlook it. In the last 4 or 5 years, have been seeking feedback out. In the beginning, before that, I did not want feedback. I thought I was good, I was right, the way I saw it was the right way. And the way I began to cultivate this seeking feedback was when somebody gives me, including at home, when somebody, my wife or somebody at work gives me feedback that is a different perspective than mine, rather than pushing it away, even if I didn't agree with it, I would say thank you for that perspective. And I continue to say that to this day, because I am grateful for that perspective. That different perspective expands your brain just a little bit more, expands your consciousness a little bit more, and you get to start to see things in a what I would consider well-rounded way. It doesn't necessarily reshape the way you think or your perspective on that, but now you can see other people's perspective, and other people's perspective is absolutely the gift, which is why feedback is a gift, because now it's going to help you leap forward and strategize in your perspectives when we get further down and we're talking about how to get a seat at the table. But understanding different people's perspectives is a gift. And so you can ask a colleague or a mentor for feedback on a recent project or a recent conversation or meeting, and focus on focus on your interpersonal dynamics, right? Use their insights to become more aware of your strengths and areas for improvement. It may sting, and that's okay. You're not going to die, right? That's the goal, is to understand the sting, feel it, hear it, say thank you for it, and move on. Regular self-reflection helps with clarity. It enables you to be a more authentic leader because it helps you be more of you. And then your values are aligned with your decisions and your behaviors. Self-aware people often are more grounded, making them more reliable and trusted by their teams, their colleagues, their family. Let's jump into some self-regulating strategies. Self-regulation is the ability to manage your emotional responses effectively, particularly in a challenging or high-stress situation. It allows you to maintain your composure, think rationally, and set a calm example. And then we illustrated 5 key strategies for self-regulation, and I want to point out, just starting with, there are more than just 5. These are just the 5 that I found very easy practical use for, or the most common 5 that I use. So breathing exercises, we talked a little bit about this in mindfulness. Deep breathing is a quick and effective way to calm your mind, body, and soul. And by focusing on your breath, you can activate your body's relaxation response, reducing immediate stress and helping you regain control. Doing this in a meeting when they're looking for a response for you may not be the thing, right? It would look weird if you were to just like, as somebody asked you a question, you just started like, you might end up looking a little bit more like a sociopath or a psycho, right? But it depends on your culture and what is allowed in your workplace, of course. If that is a thing, then absolutely exercise that. But if it's not a thing, we're going to talk about a few more other strategies that you can use. Very easy way that I like to breathe or deep breathe when necessary, or when in my morning routine, is I do the box breathing. So the technique of 4, 4, 4, 4. You inhale for 4 counts, you hold for 4 counts, you exhale for 4 counts, and you hold at the bottom for 4 counts. And so this simple exercise can be done at any time that you feel tension. I use it usually in my morning prior to meditation, just to get my body relaxed and focused. And so to help me, again, stop all the thoughts that are running through my head as they are running through all the time. Cognitive reframing is our second strategy that we have. And cognitive reframing involves you just changing your perspective on a situation. Just think the opposite immediately, right? And try to see it in a more positive and constructive light. This shift can reduce the negative emotions that you have and help you approach challenges with a more open mind. Something as simple as what's the best that can happen versus what's the worst that can happen. Your mind will always try to find exactly what you believe. So if you start to say what's the best that can happen, it will start to find the better things, the best of what can happen, versus what's the worst that can happen, that it starts to find all the worst things that could happen. And I know Murphy's Law is true and all that stuff. I'm just telling you, if you can, when you can, shift your perspective to the opposite. The delayed response is one of my favorites. One of my favorites to do, not one of my favorites to have done to me. When I'm ready to talk, I'm ready to talk. However, I do honor and acknowledge when people are not ready to talk now. Sometimes the best response is no immediate response. And by taking a moment to process your emotions, before you react, you are preventing this impulsive decision or impulsive vomit that's about to happen and that you could later regret. So when you receive some unexpected news, consider stepping away and going for a brief walk or giving yourself a moment before responding. This delay will allow you to first measure yourself, see where you're at, have that deep breathing we just talked about, and then think through your reaction. I know all of us have gone through a discussion or a disagreement with someone, and we react and we say the thing that we need to say. Usually it's trying to hurt them back if they hurt us. That's usually what happens. And afterwards, an hour or a day later, we start to think of all the better things we could have said that would have had a better impact, not necessarily hurtful, but a better impact. And so the delayed response helps you to get there faster, right? How can I say this in the most loving way possible, but still set my boundaries or still get across what I'm trying to say and not sugarcoat it? That's what delayed responses give you. Mindful practice is our fourth, and we've talked about mindfulness already. Meditation, mindful observation, enhancing your awareness of your emotional triggers and helping you manage them more effectively as they arise. And then last but not least is physical movement. Physical movement is, of course, light exercise, short walk, stretching, a few minutes of yoga. Physical movement helps release tension and gives your mind a chance to reset. I also want to include that physical movement could be doing whatever serves you. So you can paint, you can draw, you can play an instrument, you could sing. I categorize this as anything that brings out the creative side and brings out the best of you. Anything that allows your mind to reset is something that you probably want to engage in as far as physical movement. I know that, that may be, mind-numbing TV or video games. I don't know if that's as productive as something that brings out the creativity in you, but by all means, you know yourself better than anyone else. So have at whatever it is that serves you. And by practicing these strategies consistently, it will help you maintain your composure and make balanced, well thought out decisions as a leader. The steadiness will inspire your confidence, and it helps create a more stable, positive work environment. And who doesn't love a stable, positive work environment? Let's jump into the power of empathy. Empathy is more than just a soft skill. It's about genuinely connecting with others' emotions and perspectives and their experiences. Empathy allows leaders to step into and outside of their own viewpoints and situations and see situations from other people's perspectives. It creates, again, that foundation of trust and mutual respect. Empathy matters in leadership because it creates deep connections. Empathy creates a sense of psychological safety by showing your team members that their emotions and their perspectives matter and are safe with you. When leaders demonstrate empathy, they build trust, connection, making their team members feel comfortable in sharing their ideas, sharing their feedback, and sharing their concerns. These deeper emotional connections ultimately lead to stronger team cohesion. Next, it enhances your communication. When leaders understand others' emotions, they can adapt their communication style to resonate more effectively. For example, if a team member is stressed out or frustrated, an empathic leader will address their concerns with understanding rather than dismissing them. This leads to a more open and honest communication, which builds credibility and helps prevent misunderstandings. It also, third, creates a supportive work environment, which we just talked about. Empathy makes people feel valued and understood, which is essential for morale. In supportive environments, employees feel safe and a sense to be themselves and take those calculated risks we talked about without the fear of harsh judgment or ridicule or punishment. A sense of security is foundational to be an engaged team, and it also provokes loyalty within the team. When leaders are empathic, they encourage innovation because they understand and appreciate the diverse perspectives within their team. By valuing different viewpoints, they empower their team members to think creatively and bring out new ideas. This diversity of thought is a powerful driver for innovation, as each team member feels listened to and understood. Empathy, therefore, isn't just about being kind. It's a tool for developing a culture where creativity and innovation thrive. Enhancing your empathy. Again, we talked about, starting off with taking an assessment to see where you are, and then here are a few ways you can enhance your empathy once you understand it. The first and always will be active listening. Active listening involves giving your full attention to the speaker, focusing entirely on their words, their tone, and their intent without interruption or distractions. This looks like putting away all your devices, maintaining your eye contact, and being mindful of the nonverbal cues like nodding, giving your affirmations. You can reflect back on what you heard from them to show understanding by saying things like, "What I'm hearing you say is." Active listening is so important because it shows respect and it makes the speaker feel valued. It helps leaders get a fuller understanding of their team members' needs, concerns, which is instrumental, again, in building trust. Perspective taking is the ability of imagining how a situation will feel from somebody else's perspective, which is why it's so important to seek feedback. Because once you seek feedback and you start to gain that expansion in perspective, you can do this so much better. And this helps you get in front of so many things before it happens, right? So this involves you asking yourself questions like, how may they feel in this situation? Or what experience may shape their viewpoint? Or if I change this, how does this impact everyone? And how do I better, again, communicate this change from the perspective of the teams, the team members on my team? For me, if I'm going to a meeting or when we're having a team meeting, I adjust my communication to the majority of the people in the room based on their perspective, based on how I know they're thinking about the thing that we're about to change, implement, talk about, etc. This looks like, from the perspective of you as a leader, this looks like you thinking about and trying to understand the context of background that may be influencing the person's thoughts and reactions. It can also help you by asking clarifying questions like, can you help me understand how this means to you or what this means to you? Perspective taking reduces judgment and biases. It allows you to approach interactions with compassion and understanding. By validating other people's perspectives, you have a culture of mutual respect and emotional safety. Again, when I'm doing this in meetings and I try to get everybody's perspective and use the majority and cultivate my communication for that, then I obviously now over communicate, which you can never really over communicate, but I over communicate to hit as many perspectives as possible because I want to be as clear as possible. The information that you're trying to convey, you understand it, and the goal is to get them to understand it. And so that's why perspective taking is so important. Next, we have observing nonverbal cues. Nonverbal cues are things like body language, facial expressions, and tone of voice. It often is much more than just the words alone. Some studies show that nonverbals account for 93% of communication. So paying attention to those cues will help you pick up on the unspoken emotions, which may indicate some underlying issues. This looks like you noticing a shift of posture or facial expressions, gestures. For example, crossed arms may mean that your employee or the person you're speaking to has some discomfort. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're being rude. I cross my arms all the time. It may show that person has some discomfort, and so you can ask the question like, "Are you uncomfortable? Is everything okay?" Don't be accusatory, of course. By learning these signals of engagement, a team member is going to feel like you genuinely care about them. You'll be able to pick up on and gauge if somebody's being hesitant, or you're going to be able to pick up on if somebody shut down. And so you can say things like, you can disarm yourself. I'm only here to help, or I'm only here to be supportive, and you can start to engage them asking supportive questions instead. Observing nonverbal cues enhances your ability to respond to your team members in a way that feels attuned and understanding. It signals them that you are present and attentive, creating an environment where people feel seen and respected, right? It never feels great when somebody's trying to put words in your mouth or trying to assume how you feel. And so learning how to attune yourself to their feelings and asking the right questions always feels really, really good. Because, again, it helps them feel seen and respected. So leaders actively working on these empathetic techniques promote open communication and team cohesion. Most importantly, in that Maslow hierarchy of needs, it promotes belonging. Empathy at its core is a powerful, possibly the most powerful relationship building tool that allows us as people to genuinely make a positive impact in everybody's environment, in your team's morale, in productivity, in performance. You name it, empathy is at its core. So we talk a lot about empathy. Now, empathy, of course, and emotional intelligence will undoubtedly help you get a seat at the table, because navigating corporate culture can feel very complicated as it involves understanding often unspoken rules. There's culture in everywhere, and so the culture may not be the posters that we have up or the things that you see on our website, but they're often unspoken rules, relationships, and power dynamics that shape the decision making within an organization. Corporate culture isn't just about stating what's in the company's values, as I just said. It's about observing how things are actually happening on a day-to-day basis. So, understanding corporate culture. I have 3 strategies that I want to talk about trying to understand corporate culture. I know a lot of people have resistance to this in that they think that they're becoming less authentic when they are trying to get a seat at the table. And I would argue that while you can be yourself, you can also be strategic in how and when you are more so yourself and less so like what they want, right? And so the first strategy in this is observation. Observation is the first step to understanding who holds influence and how decisions are made and how communication flows within the organization. By paying attention to these elements, you gain some insight into informal hierarchy and the real culture of the organization. It's done by attending meetings with an open mindset to learn. Notice which voices are the most respected and observe how ideas are introduced and accepted. Are decisions made top down, or do they require buy-in from various stakeholders? This is going to help you understand the pathways of influence and how you can, again, then cultivate your way in. For example, in a team meeting, notice who speaks up and whose input has weight. Who do people defer to? And by defer, I mean who do people look to for the final decision? Who seems to hold the informal authority? This knowledge can guide your interactions and ensure that your efforts are strategically aligned. Next, we have building relationships. Building relationships as a leader is going to be one of the most important things you do. You need relationships in order to be effective. And so by building relationships outside of your immediate teams, broadens your network and provides you with a more comprehensive understanding of your organization. Connections across departments create a support system, and enable you to gather diverse perspectives on company dynamics. I can't tell you how often, talking to a person from, sales or HR or etc., somebody from a different department gives me an entire different perspective of, operations, because now I understand how it affects X, Y, or Z. This looks like you looking for opportunities to connect with people in other departments and at different levels. I can't express how important it is to connect with people at different levels. Working doesn't have to be forced. It's as simple as some informal chats at the water cooler, on coffee breaks, stopping by to say hello, or participating in cross-departmental projects. And I want to stress people at different levels, because people at different levels have different perspectives. The higher you go, the broader their perspective or their vision is. So it's important to understand that and to see that. Finally, we have your personal brand. Your personal brand within the organization should reflect your reliability, your emotional intelligence, and your integrity. And by consistently demonstrating these qualities, you build trust and become someone who others view as dependable, supportive, and principled. How this is done. Consider how you respond to challenges, how you handle feedback, how you support your colleagues. Authenticity, empathy, and consistent professionalism will solidify your personal brand. Decide who it is you want to be and be it. Here's an example. When you address a challenging situation with compassion and understanding, reinforce your brand of being trustworthy, of being emotional intelligent. Over time, this reputation will make you the go-to person for collaboration or leadership roles when people are in the room and they need a name and your name comes up. Navigating corporate politics, isn't about manipulation or playing games. It's about being observant, being strategic, and building genuine relationships. By focusing on authentic connections, you position yourself as a trusted and influential leader, capable of contributing meaningfully to the organizational goals. Again, not manipulative. Securing your seat at the table. Leadership is closely tied to influence. And by securing a seat at the table, it's about positioning yourself as a valuable contributor to the decision-making processes within its organization. It requires strategic action that demonstrates your capability, reliability, and emotional intelligence. Ways to position yourself strategically. The first is to offer solutions, right? Nobody wants somebody who's constantly complaining without offering solutions. So proactively identify areas for improvement and propose solutions before being asked. This demonstrates you taking the initiatives, your critical thinking, and your dedication to the organization's success. So you can observe any challenges or inefficiency within your department or outside of your department and suggest realistic, well thought out solutions and address these areas. Taking an initiative is the key. It's the go-to. It's what tells people that you're not here just to earn a paycheck. You're actually here to make an impact. So if you notice like a reoccurring theme or a reoccurring issue with, let's say, team communication, you may propose a streamlined meeting structure or recommend a tool that can help the team improve its collaboration. Next, we want you to build alliances. Alliances are relationships that provide mutual support. It broadens your influence and it opens up opportunities for collaboration and career growth. Strong alliances make you part of a network that shares information, resources, and opportunities. The way you want to do this is you want to engage with colleagues who share similar goals, respect your work, and bring a unique strength to the table. Supporting others in their objectives often results in a reciprocal support. So you want to create this by supporting them supporting you. Again, boundaries are necessary. If you are supporting someone that isn't supporting you, I would maybe not consider them an alliance. It's something that creates a collaborative network. Example of this is partnering with colleagues on a cross-functional level. It could be an initiative, or it could be something that they need that you're going to use your influence as a catalyst to get it done for them or to get it done on their behalf. It's something that expands your influence, but also showcases your collaborative skills to widen your audience within the organization. And lastly is my favorite one. Master subtle communication. Communication is probably one of my favorite things to do. Gift of gab. So subtle communication involves reading the room, understanding your audience, and adapting your message accordingly. We talked about this and what I do for different perspectives in meeting settings. This allows you to convey the ideas in a way that resonates with others accordingly. And it also makes sure that you're aligned with the organizational culture. So before a presentation, you would take a few minutes and you would gauge the preferences and the priorities of the people that are in the meeting, the key stakeholders. You would consider whether you want to take a direct approach or a more diplomatic approach based on the personalities involved and the company's communication style, right? For one of my leaders that I had in the past, he didn't want any colors on any graphs. He just wanted the data. And so before you sat in a meeting with him, you made sure that you had the data and you made sure it had no colors and it was not in a graph. Sure. So it was quite funny. That was my dog. It was quite funny when we would sit in meetings with people who didn't know him and they would have these colors and graphs and you would immediately see him turn off and kind of disengage. So here again, you want to consider the personalities, see if you want to be direct, see if you want to be diplomatic. Because if you're going to propose a new initiative, you might emphasize its alignments in the existing organizational goals for results-driven audience, or you want to focus on team well-being for an audience who prioritizes employee satisfaction, right? And so who's in the room? How can I check the boxes and satisfy everyone in the room, or the majority in the room, or the one who has the most influence and holds the most weight in the room, right? Be strategic about the way you want to go about this. These strategies demonstrate your capabilities of making yourself an essential part of the decision-making process. Remember that leadership is about influence and inspiring others towards a shared vision, not about authority. Embrace these approaches to contribute meaningfully to your team and your organization's success. Now, we're going to do a quick overview and some key takeaways. We are on the back end of our presentation, and I want to just reiterate that we started this with EI and its components of self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. These elements work together to form the foundation that enables leaders to connect with their teams on a deeper level, navigate complex interpersonal dynamics, and make thoughtful decisions. Then we moved into you recognizing your own emotional patterns and responses, as that is the first step in managing them. Self-regulation then enables us to respond to these intentions rather than reacting to them, especially when we're in high-stress situations. Together, these skills create emotional clarity and resilience, helping us lead calmly and with a steady presence. Fourth, we talked about the power of empathy, and it showed us how to understand and relate to the emotions of others, and how social skills help us communicate, resolve conflict, and build stronger relationships. Leaders who actively practice these skills create this environment where team members feel valued, heard, inspired, and foster a supportive and innovative culture. And finally, we uncovered how EI plays a key role in navigating the complexities of corporate culture. But by observing these organizational dynamics, building meaningful relationships, and positioning yourselves with influence and integrity, we can gain the trust and credibility needed to have a true impact. As an employee and more so as a leader, integrating EI into your daily practices is not just about individual growth. It's about creating this ripple effect that enhances team cohesion, motivation, and engagement. And so by continuing to develop these skills, you're building a positive and emotionally aware culture that drives long-term success for you, your team, and your organization. Thank you so much for attending this presentation, and I am open for Q&A.